clearly see this week is not a very intense week. By now we've already done an introduction as to what we're doing, but prep has started on a good note, which is deloading. So I finished the back end of a very intense block of training and pushed the body to near breaking point, which is good. Finished off the final week with PBs in 4 out of 5 primary movements, being pendulums after my hamstring tear, RDLs after the hamstring tear, incline press, and dumbbell rows. So overall primary movements and strength in all directions and planes seems to be improving, which is good. So we're starting prep off with a decent baseline, and the hamstring rehab has kind of allowed us for a very strong runway of progression in prep. Should be a long period of time before we actually see growth strength diminish, which is good. But this week it's gonna be a lot more chill week. I've got treatments, more stretching, sauna, rehab work, mobility. Try and basically free everything up before prep gets too intense. Something different this prep that I'll be doing now that we're kind of in a more financially stable position is looking at fortnightly to weekly treatments. The body just simply needs more work with the extra mass and the extra training, the intensity I've been training at, and also just having the extra mobility, range of motion, and reducing the stiffness for posing is going to be all useful. So we'll be more frequent in tune-ups and touch-ups and things like that. So we're trying to capture more of that stuff as we go. At the moment, just going through some stretching and mobility, just loosen things up, especially through the glutes and hips. My hip area as of late has been quite tight, especially compromising from the hamstring tear. So I'm trying to spend some time sitting into positions here to loosen and free it up as best we can, and just continue to work on that over prep. So everything, all things considered, this prep is definitely starting in better positions on most metrics. And I'm just going to try and sustain that and push as long as we can until the body declines. But for the most part, things are starting pretty well. And we'll move through kind of what the intentions are across the week as we go. What is up, YouTube? All right. Welcome to the first intro for our prep series. It is later in the week, so we're doing this on a Friday. Did the week a little bit backwards. But it is a deload week, so not much is happening this week. We basically started the maintenance phase or the bridging phase between off-season and prep starting with a week off. The body was just at an absolute extreme, which we've already kind of touched on in some remedial work that I was doing outside. We basically pushed the maximum limit of off-season strength, progressive overload, and just joint capacity that we had. So first week of prep is realistically just reducing stress, reducing inflammation, giving the joints some time off. I've had some manual treatment done. The guys at Axiom absolutely destroyed me. Dry needling, manual treatments, deep tissue work. Been a lot of stretching at the gym, mobility work. I'll do some more stretching this afternoon. And then things will actually ramp up next week. So basically, the plan is to, according to SCAF, we're going to ride this into what is going to be a bit more of a bro volume pump sort of approach to training. Primarily, we'll run off 2 to 3 main movements that will facilitate each week, and then exercises will be more of a rep range to facilitate pump, volumization, increased blood flow. That will change as it needs to change. I'll update you guys as we go with what SCAF is saying, or if I've kind of incorrectly paraphrased that, but it's the gist of what I got out of what we're doing. Which kind of makes sense. Joint protection as long as possible, fatigue protection as long as possible into the prep, rather than trying to absolutely abuse every single movement. It'll just be 2 to 3 primary movements and then let the rest of the program act accordingly. with the areas that we want to focus on. Food for the time being is still relatively high. So I've dropped 1.5 kilos this week on 600 carbs, 65 fat, 250 protein. Protein will probably stay predominantly the same for the next 20 weeks. We'll modify fats and carbohydrates around that. So we went from 108.5 down to 107.2. The body's kind of held there for now, what is about 5 days, which is pretty good. So to have that response already on a pretty high amount of food is good. Supplementation, you know what I mean when I say supplementation, is down to a very low bridging phase. So we're not going to be running a high supplementation protocol for the entire prep. We need some time off. Going to be getting blood work done on Monday, which will take you guys to film as much as possible so that we can get an indication of how things are starting. There'll be probably some high numbers there just with how it being the most aggressive off season we've had, and the highest weight that I've been in this condition. So there's probably going to be some higher numbers, indicators in there that we need to assess, some metrics, but for the most part, all of that will tighten up pretty sweetly with weight coming down, cardiovascular work going back in or being consistent, and then supplementation protocols being present as well. So, and pulling obviously things down in regards to supplementation. So all those metrics will be getting taken care of, make sure they're healthy and happy before we dive into the aggressive phase of prep. Yeah, that's pretty much where we are currently up to. Only going to be doing 2 or 3 sessions this week, nothing hectic, and they're really just 1 to 2 sets per exercise. So again, nothing crazy. For the most part, what do we got here at the moment? Food plan with how we're going at the moment has been pushed to five meals a day, I believe. A lot of rice, still mixed vegetables, still maintaining what I prescribe to my clients, which is at least 500 grams of vegetables a day, and at least 2 serves or up to 250 grams of fruit in a day as well as a bare minimum. So we're still getting three primary meals of meat, proteins, vegetables, and rice. We have crumpet breaks in there and nut spreads. We have cream of rice, protein shakes, and fruit inside the cream of rice as well. So it's still a pretty decent variety of food. Ticks, I think, everything but calcium and vitamin A needs some supplementation, which we get in anyway. But for the most part, the nutrition diversity and volume is still relatively high to get all my needs. And we'll be just amending this. So one of the things you'll see from me is how I switch across prep from more dense foods as calories are higher into how I start to volumize food when food gets low. So this will be the heaviest starting point of a prep I've ever had. So I'm curious to see how I'll respond and what the body starts to shape up like. So peaking at 109, this is the heaviest, largest I've ever been. So I'll be keen to see how food selection, food variety needs to change as food comes down to bring out the look and what the body actually needs to do. So yeah, all in all, that's kind of where we're starting things off with. It's all in a good spot. Everything's in a good position. Meal plan is pretty strategized. I make the meal plan. Scaff doesn't. He just gives me my macros and obviously tells me what to aim for with bare minimums and health targets. But I don't like for the most part with how busy we are, the things we're trying to achieve and the workload that I will have during prep, I don't like to have the mental friction of trying to make up macros across the day. You know, trying to fit 25 grams of this here, 5 grams of that there, and 10 grams to make a meal. I like to know what I have planned out for my meals and make sure that I stick to that and reduce as much mental friction as possible. So some people like to have the diversity across their plans. I will pretty much, as I've been doing for the last 2 years, basically stick to the same template and will modify as I need to. And realistically, as I've said to all my clients and people I've spoken to in podcasts and things like that, for me, prep is going from, or realistically, right now it's probably like moving from 4th gear to 5th. And then once prep actually starts, we're just going 5th gear to 6th. Everything is already in place. There's nothing new to my lifestyle we're adding. There's nothing different we're adding. Protocols change slightly up or down with intensity. Food accuracy changes slightly. So it might be more accuracy around tracking sources or condiments as opposed to whether it was none or a little bit. It might be more like we've pulled out free meals, so we're not going to get a cookie or sushi. So those things just get tightened up, which again to me constitutes going from 4th gear to 5th. And then come prep when it's full blown, the maintenance phase is finished, the bridging phase is finished, then it's just absolutely non-negotiable 5th gear to 6th. Nothing else matters. And me and Brooklyn have had a conversation, and it's pretty well established as to who I am anyway, but this prep is going to be an absolute no budging for anyone on anything type of mentality. There's been a lot of previous preps where I've been very flexible in boundaries and where I say no and still produce great results, but in this season, it's gonna be my team, my clients, the business, study, and prep, and that's it. And anything else around that gets fit in. But for the most part, that is the primary focuses of what we execute to make sure we deliver for everyone else and deliver for ourselves. So now it's not just about how I stack up on stage, it's about going to win and do what I can to maximize my chances of winning. And that's gonna be the approach that we have for the next 24 weeks. So let's go.
Pick it up. You see the drip, yeah, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up. You see the drip, yeah, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up. Ooh, I've been on the flex since flex zone. Neighborhood. Never scared like Bone Crush. Boy, I got God, don't fear none. My life.
Is it on? All right, so as we've said in other content this week, or other parts of this week, first week of prep starting off as a deload, so absolutely nothing exciting in this session. A lot more mobility and stretching, triggering, releasing, and then pretty much one working set at like 50% load on everything. So it'll be 45-degree hip extensions, pendulum squats, leg extensions, hamstring curls, adductors. So very, very small, easy session. Mostly going to focus on mobility and stretching and releasing today. It's Sunday, so this is the last day of the deload. We get bloods done tomorrow, and then the training block will start on Tuesday. So just going to start rolling through everything. Core and pelvis work, low back work, some glute stuff, hip flexors, low back, some rotation.
Pick it up. You see the drip, yeah, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up.
All right, some key points of the pendulum squat, especially if you're feeling out weight, progressing into the movement. Take your shoes off, get a little bit flatter with your feet, feel the connection of your feet in the flooring, in the padding, or the plate. Find your tripod position or your 3 points of contact. So outside pinky toe, inside big toe, heel. Create that triangular platform, and then focus on driving through that midpoint between those three. The main reason for that is if we go too far back onto the heels or too far forward, we're going to shift load through the knee. So a really easy example of this, if you get up on your toes, you're almost going to kind of like a sissy squat, but you're going to feel the load come through your patella. It's going to come through your knee. Especially as you come down and control the eccentric, you're basically driving force through the foot and through your toes, which is then going to load into your knee to try and brace and stop. For me, with where my back is, my lower back flexibility compared to my ankle and leg flexibility, hip flexibility, I need to stop at about 3/4 range of motion. If I were to do that with my feet loading through my toes, which I've done in the past and I hadn't corrected my movement, it will load and drive into my knees in order to brace and stop, and then require force to drive back up, which is going to come again through the knee. So make sure that you're loading midpoint of contact, drive through the heels, drive through that midpoint of your foot to prevent load shifting either too far back or too far forward. All right, literally just going to be a working set of 10. Again, it's not a heavy weight, we're just controlling, driving some degree of stimulus. All right, again, so this movement we're going about 50% load for a total of just one working set. Just trying to drive stimulus and control into the tissue, get some blood flow to the area without overworking too much and allowing the deload to take its job seriously and get the recovery and reduction in inflammation that we need. Again, as we spoke about on content we put out previously, machines with things like handles to allow for that to exist, actually use it so that you can allow your body to, lock in properly, drive necessary stimulus and keep stability. Alright, that is literally as simple as my deload sessions get. Now in prep, deload sessions will be a little bit different, be more controlled, an actual percentage reduction in total stimulus. But for this part, pretty much just taking this pre-prep phase to just rejuvenate a little bit, relax the body, reduce inflammation, reduce fatigue, allow the joints to recover, get some treatment obviously, and then things will escalate in training from there. So yeah, they're not the most exciting sessions, but it's a necessary process to facilitate the outcome long term. So a lot of the time, like prep athletes lose the forest for the trees, go balls to the walls, and don't allow things like a deload to occur, or I'm too tough to deload, I don't need that in prep, I don't need that in training. But looking at the process and also look at the long-term objective, the fresher you can come into stage, the fresher you can come into your physique, the better you take your training periodization to a degree, the greater the look's going to be on stage, the more fresh you're going to be at the back end. That stress, without the body being so heavily stressed and inflamed, food's going to do its job better, your appearance is going to hold nicer, cortisol will be lower, fluid retention will be a little bit lower, and the body will actually land and kind of amalgamate, if that's the right word, and line up to where you want it to be right on time. So yeah, again, not exciting. From here, I'm probably gonna, what will happen for next week is we'll get aggressive in training again, get back up to 1 RIRs, 2 RIRs, and progress training from there. Actually do this bridge-in phase, get healthy, make sure everything's healthy, and then we absolutely send it in training. We officially have dates for shows now, which is awesome. So we'll be looking at the 7th, I believe it's the 19th, 18th of April is the Gold Coast, 28th is Nationals, and then we've got to pick a shows between, we'll look at South Australia, Western Australia, which I believe are the 6th and 7th of April. So there's a strong season ahead, which is good. I'm excited for that. I've never done that many shows. I don't believe there's any point getting that lean if we can't maximize it. This will be the first position where we're able financially to allow that to happen. And then we'll determine, depending on placings, positions, situations, if international trips are on the card,
see how we stack up. So yeah, it's really about it. From here now, do some posing practice, do some sauna. Brooklyn's got to finish her session. Probably jump on the bike for a little bit. And that's it. That's deload week done. Stay tuned. Pay attention. There's more to come.